exactly we will have solution about Russian disintegration. But we have to not just believe that, we have to activate for this. It's happening, or it's happening. We have to do something. Everybody ask himself, what I do or what I did for future, my security future, for my children, grandchildren, and for our future. Ukrainian people do everything what they can do to have victory. But victory, it means not just war, victory on the battlefield. Victory, it means we could take people who committed war crimes against civilians. We take them responsible and punish them. What it will mean victory. And therefore, to happen, what happened, this we have to do, everybody do something to help Ukraine. We not should tired, we not should sleep. We have to do everything to help Ukraine win this war. It will be solution. It will be our fighting was not just for winning. Our fighting is for justice, for future, our generation, next generation.
So if it's, because if Ukraine is so existential to Russia, then winning obviously brings the empire to crumble, and that will have the longer effect. Žygimantas, you already gave us a little bit of the scenarios, because you've talked about, find the McCain in every single allied country, and this will bring the empire closer. But we know that sometimes it doesn't happen. Ukraine experienced, just before we voted in the referendum for Ukraine's independence, we had President Bush having this famous Chicken Cave speech, trying to convince Ukrainians that it wasn't a good idea to leave the Soviet Union. So how do we exactly do it in current circumstances?
Well, I'm optimist. My school was the closest to TV tower in January, so I saw my friends killed by Soviet tanks in January. And from that moment, it took 12 years until we signed the accession treaty in Copenhagen. 12 years. Who believed that? Nobody in the West. Maybe a few days, few Americans, one German, one Swede. Carl Bildt, yes, Carl Bildt. So I think, answering to a question, it's not about Russia at all. What we know from our deep medieval history, it was always us defining the borders of Russians, not Russians. So 3 factors here. First fact is China. When Xi will decide to attack Taiwan, because Russia became a captive nation of China. Oops. Little historic stupid Putin's mistake. He should never do it. That's serious. That's the biggest existential threat to Russia. So when China moves to Taiwan, and I was just in Taiwan with the same Ukrainian group, they said that it might be done till the end of Trump administration, because Trump administration is the best to do it. If America returns to its normal, then it's not so easy. So, other thing is America. If we allow this Russian virus grow in Washington, I think we will defeat it in midterm elections seriously on the Hill. But in Trump administration, there is a serious fight. We have to be part of that fight, because there are 2 scenarios. Remember when Russians reached Berlin? With American technologies and help. This is one scenario, and it might happen. If Trump and, if Russians get strong in Washington, Russians might reach Berlin again, crossing all our territories. But if we take Washington to our side, and convince them to, get rid of this stupid neutrality between aggression and victim that is absolutely un-American. America celebrates 250th anniversary of freedom, the biggest empire kind of force supporting the worst empire in Europe. This is the ugliest fact, and I'm using it to make them nervous. And the last thing, it will depend on us, Europeans. Danes draw the line for Lithuanians in the Baltics. As Lithuanian ambassador just said, it was the most successful Danish foreign policy you ever created. You created us. Thank you, Danes. But let's do it now for Ukrainians. Because Putin is now preparing his succession. You know, I remind him, he's 74 years old. Stalin died in 75. You know, you can do miracles, but people die. When they die, something happens, especially in those stupid empires that belong just on one person. So be ready. He is preparing it for 2030. So it's two scenarios. Either we have Putin's plan, and you have new smiling, great Putin that looks nice, and all stupid West will start shaking his hands, and he has a war with us, or we have our plan. So it's our decision to give Ukrainians succession date or not. Swedes did it for us, not Danes. It was Swedish presence in 2001, when we closed the biggest number of chapters, and Swedes said, okay, 2004, 1st of May, in 3 days. It was a strategic political decision. You do it or you don't. You play with Russians or you play with Europe whole and free. And do you want to construct Europe of Vikings or not? Because those are Vikings, Ukrainians, I mean. People who live on the border of extension, they are the strongest people on this planet. Lithuanians including, Ukrainians including, Finns including, Chechens including, Georgians including, because we know that if we stay average, we die. We are perfectionists. We always fight for the best. That's why we grow so much. That's why we are so successful example of Danish experiment, because we know we are like Israelis. And Arunas was right to mention Israel. We are, you know, Vilnius was Jerusalem of the north. For good reason, because we were resisting those animals, Mongol Tatars mostly, who were always crossing our territories. And Russia is Mongol Tatar state. We know it for 1,000 years. So it's about us, about you. You decide when it stops, not Russians.
Thank you for bringing